Dear students, welcome to the teleconferencing related to the master's program in rural development. Today we will be acquainting you with one of the most important courses which is part of this master's program in rural development. As you know, master's program in rural development has 9 courses whereby a learner is supposed to study them and appear for the government examinations, and you get the print materials. There's one course which is equivalent to 12 credit, but student is supposed to do research work and select a topic and do research work and prepare a project report and submit for evaluation to SR&E division. Out of these 9 courses whereby a learner is supposed to take examination, the first course, as you know, is MRD 101, which is rural development in Indian context, and it has 4 blocks: rural society and economy, rural development concepts and strategies and experiences, rural development agrarian issues, rural development administration, dynamics of change in rural India. And course MRD 102, which is related to particularly to rural development programs, covers such areas as poverty alleviation programs, programs for self and wage employment and social security, the current strategies involved in it, and other development programs. Then there are rural basic services and infrastructure, and then natural resources management and environment. MRD 103, the rural development planning and management, covers such areas as rural development planning, rural development management and voluntary action. And these 3 courses are basically what you call compulsory courses. Along with this, there is another course which we introduced in the first year only. This is the research methods in rural development, whereby a learner is acquainted with the fundamentals of or basic aspects of research, how to prepare a proposal, a formulation of research proposal, and research problem, and the preparation of a proposal, and how to go about data collection, and then we have discussed tools of data collection, methods of sampling, tools of, then there is how data is to be processed and analyzed. All these aspects are put there so that a learner is theoretically equipped to take up some research work which for the course which is pertains to particularly the project work. The MRDP 001 dissertation and project work is this 12 credit course, which is equal to 2 courses, because other all courses are worth 6 credits. And then when we introduce in you to the second year, then we have 6 courses, out of which you have the option to choose 5 courses. And the course which we'll be discussing with you, the basics, that voluntary action in rural development, basically one of those these courses, and the other courses are rural health care, whereby we have taken care of such areas as health in rural India, health care programs and performance, health care planning and management, and then the other course, RDD 7, is communication and extension in rural development, which has 3 blocks, and these cover basic principles and techniques of communication, extension, concepts, philosophy and approaches as applied to extension education, communication and extension in the context of rural development. And then there is a planning, last block deals with planning communication, that's extension support for rural development, which covers communication support, extension management, organization communication and communication strategies for rural development. The rural social development MRDE 101 deals with the areas like development of rural women, development of rural children, development of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other underprivileged groups. The 4th block is policies and social legislation on children, women and scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Broadly, I'm just as you have got the program guide, you have got the material, you know what are the contents and all that, but I am trying to contextualize in this particular course, which is a new course, and this is a very useful and very important course for this master's program in rural development. So in order to contextualize this course and bring out its relevance, it's necessary that I just give a broader survey of the these 6 courses which you take in the second year. Out of these 6 courses, your learner is supposed to choose any 5 courses. Now MRD 002, it's voluntary action in rural development. This is the course which we broadly will be discussing today, and this has 4 blocks. The first block covers voluntarism, state and society, whereby we take, I come back to this, but first I tell you the other 2-3 courses also which are part of these courses. This MRD 003 is land reforms and rural development. It has land tenure system and agrarian structure, and then land reforms in independent India, and then implementation of land reforms, constraints and prospects. This is also one of the very important courses. And then MRD 004 is entrepreneurship and rural development. This has 3 blocks again, and these blocks cover understanding entrepreneurship, whereby we discuss the entrepreneurship concepts and theories, evolution of entrepreneurship in India, democratic state, development and entrepreneurship, market economy and entrepreneurship, unleashing rural entrepreneurship. The second block goes to rural entrepreneurship, strategies and experiences, and the last block is an enterprise in a rural area, how a learner can, a person who has done master's program in rural development can go into understanding how to set up an enterprise, in particularly in a rural area. Now the course, the 6th course which I was talking is voluntary action in rural development, and which will be the focus of this discussion today. Has 4 blocks, and it covers such areas as first block is voluntarism, state and society. We have tried to explain the relationship between the state and democratic society and voluntarism. To begin with, we have tried to trace the roots of voluntarism in the philosophical foundations of its philosophical foundations in philosophy, and then has tried to link it with the voluntaristic theory of Talcott Parsons and Weber's theory of social action. An effort has been made so that the learner understands what is voluntarism, what constitutes voluntarism. As you will be aware, one block on voluntary action in rural development is also part of, as I was telling you, the contents of this whole program. When you might have seen that in MRD 103, rural development planning and management, the 3rd block is voluntary action, which covers voluntary effort in rural development, voluntary agency administration, developing community-based programs and projects, social action, formulating, strengthening of voluntary organizations. These 5 units are in a basically rudimentary fundamental form, which are counterposed to the very planned development. After independence, the Indian state opted for planned development on one side, but there are other initiatives which have gradually emerged from within the society, and they are very important in a democratic society, and these basic aspects have been here discussed in a preliminary fashion. But as we move on to as a full-fledged course, which to MRD 002, there we have discussed in depth, all about whatsoever possible, the maximum at a master's level. A learner must specialize into understanding how voluntary action is important in the context of rural development. And then, as I was telling you, that this first block covers voluntarism and theoretical issues, whereby we have traced the roots of voluntarism in philosophy, its foundations in philosophy, and then linking it to a social social theory, particularly in sociology or social sciences, how they get linked up. Once a learner understands the very philosophical foundations of voluntarism, it becomes convenient for him to understand what's the relevance of this particular area in society, and more so in the context of rural development. Then second unit we come forward to voluntary associations in a democratic society. We will be giving particular emphasis in this area today, and how what is the importance of voluntary associations in a democratic society, how basically along with the growth of democracy, along with the unfolding of democracy, historically voluntary associations emerged, voluntary action emerged, and in a way it contributed to the growth of democracy. Also, as democracy flourished, there emerged, vice versa, there emerged a scope for the growth of voluntary associations, voluntary organizations, and voluntary action in societies. So it has a very, very symbiotic linkage with the democracy, and the with the growth and evolution of democracy, voluntary action, voluntary associations flourished. Vice versa, the very flourishing of voluntary associations and voluntary action in society contributes to the further growth of democratic institutions. In the third unit, we have tried to explain to the learners the relations between voluntary organizations, the state and development. It is a very, very delicate relationship. As I explained to you that in the earlier course, we have on the one side counterposed planned development, planning and management in development. Counterposed to that, we have a voluntary action in in one block, the importance of voluntary action in rural development. So here, that's why that very linkages with the state are very important, because on the one side there is a democratic state which makes 5-year plans, particularly in the context of India, and implements them to develop the society in general, and particularly here in this context we mean rural development and developing the rural areas. But on the other hand, it's not always that the state's perception is right. Many times state's perception is static. It's not that visionary, it's not that futuristic, because state has a tendency to maintain status quo, and normally it will not like to disturb the existing arrangements. No doubt, a democratic state has always compulsion to do, it's bound to do, go for development and for the welfare of the people. And later on, even if you will so like that when the welfare component of the state comes into picture, so it's all bound by it. But even despite that, that thinking stands markedly different than what the people perceive. So people who are at the grassroots level, they perceive their problems, they perceive the solutions of those problems very different from that of the state. So when they come together, when they start initiate some action, when they take up certain kind of development projects, their vision is very much different. And the last experience after independence, particularly in the last 2-3 decades, is such that the experiences which emerge from within the society through voluntary action and voluntary organizations, NGOs and all that, such experience has been so valuable that it has been given, it has forced the state to take, shift its development priorities. State has learned many excellent lessons from the voluntary organizations and NGOs from their experience, and over a period it has have now making every effort to make them partners in development. That's the process. This is a long process after independence which we have travelled, that in the beginning the state was not so considerate to give any much importance to the voluntary organization in the beginning decades, but gradually as the many development programs of the state formulated by the state through various plans were not so successful. If we will not call them that they failed, but at least they contribute to some extent, but they were not so successful making a dent in rural development. So simultaneously, the initiatives which emerged from within the state in various forms, in the form of various NGOs and voluntary organizations, they were so rich that state ultimately was forced to recognize their importance and strive to make partnerships with these voluntary organizations, and learned from their experience and change this direction of development, its priorities of development. This process is going on, but now the voluntary sector in India has come up and stood as all over the world, in all democratic societies. Similarly, in India also, being a democratic society, there was a lot of scope for flourishing for the growth and expansion of voluntary associations, NGOs. A large number of them, even state, does everything to fund them, particularly through the institutions like CAPART and various international voluntary organizations, international development agencies and international development organizations. They are also funding because when the work done by voluntary organizations and NGOs within the society is excellent. So there's a relationship between voluntary organization, the state and the development. It has a very delicate relationship that we have discussed in Unit 3, and then in Unit 4 we have discussed philosophy and nature of non-profit organizations. Now this non-profit organization, the very concept is that on the one hand there is a state, on the other hand there is a market, then there is society. The market forces or the business forces, particularly strive, work with a prime motive of profit, earning profit. Market forces will have utter disregard for any kind of development or initiatives or for doing any good for the society in general. We cannot expect from them, but they are in parallel to that have emerged non-profit organizations which are particularly initiatives, voluntary initiatives, but particularly in the field of where business concerns or people's meeting people's needs, certain needs which a state is unable to meet, even if it makes all efforts. A state will never be able to meet the needs of the people. Market, on the other hand, will never be able to provide all the goods necessary in the society. So a gap, an area which remains unattended, like many businesses are such which business community may not take up, but because they are not profitable. For example, tending to the sick and attending to the needs of the poor, as market will not find it profitable, and state even will not be having all the means to reach all these kind of problems in society. So the non-profit organizations work in society. No doubt all voluntary organizations and NGOs are supposed to be non-profit organizations, but when we discuss particularly non-profit organizations, here we concentrate on those areas which on those organizations which are busy in providing goods and services to society without any profit, without making any profit. So these 4 units make your first block in this course, and then as we come forward, then the second block we have basic features of voluntary organizations. So in this we have discussed, first unit takes care of the organization and structure of voluntary organizations, and the second unit we have discussed the voluntary agency, administration and management, and the third unit we have discussed voluntary organizations, issues and agenda for social transformation. There we have brought out that what is the current or contemporary agenda of voluntary organizations for development, rural development, particularly in case of India. Fourth unit takes care of the finance and resource mobilization, how voluntary organizations procure their funds, because after all they need funding. They need funding to run their organizations, to do work within society. They need large funds. To begin with, there may be small ventures, but as voluntary organizations or NGOs grow, they need a lot of funds. So part of it is always funded by the state, because democratic state realizes the importance of voluntary sector. So it is willing to fund substantial funding to this sector. On the other hand, there are then even private business houses and international development agencies, international voluntary organizations, all in such organizations are also willing to fund to voluntary sector, because voluntary sector it helps to expand democracy in various societies, and since democracy is most important to retain for the growth and development of society and for the humane existence and in society, so the funding becomes necessary and almost very important by these various international organizations and even by the Indian state or by Indian business houses. The third block then will come to the areas which are particularly pertaining to discussing the relationship of voluntary organizations with the rural development. Like voluntary effort in rural development, a critical appraisal, this acquaints the student, particularly the historical context, how before independence Gandhian efforts were in fact the beginning. Gandhian agenda of rural reconstruction was the very first organized strategy which analyzed and had done practical work to develop rural areas, which brought rural development in the center stage of the political agenda during the freedom movement, and basically the whole credit goes to Gandhi. Before that there were efforts, isolated efforts, but maybe by individuals here there, but they were not so organized. So in this critical appraisal we acquaint the student broadly. I will come to the actual contents of this also. How then later on, how after independence, when planned development came into picture, how the voluntary organizations gradually evolved and NGOs evolved, and how this sector expanded. Then we have discussed in this block nature and types of various voluntary organizations in rural India. After that we have discussed the problems faced by voluntary organizations in rural areas. And then fourth takes care of voluntary organizations and rural development at crossroads. This is a very interesting unit where we have tried to explain how voluntary organization and rural development are many times at such a point now that they are at a crossroads, because the earlier agendas which voluntary organizations and NGOs were following are more or more becoming, they need to be revised, they need to be evolved, because the developmental priorities and contexts are shifting. For instance, if we discuss the case of Pura, which our President Abdul Kalam had proposed that, providing urban amenities in rural areas, Pura. So the center is focusing. So voluntary organizations now cannot look only at developing, in isolated fashion only the rural areas. When such a concept comes into picture, like the Pura, I am telling you, which is our President, ex-President Dr. Abdul Kalam had proposed that we should develop we should provide in rural areas amenities, such amenities which are already available in urban centers. So if when such concepts come into picture and this kind of shift in focus comes, development agenda also shifts its priorities. Similarly, voluntary organizations and non-governmental organizations, NGOs, are supposed to rethink of their earlier agendas of development, and they have to come towards accommodating such aspects. So that's why we have named it voluntary organizations and rural development at crossroads. That's we have reached after 60 years at such a stage where development concerns of rural development concerns are shifting or taking, different shape, and voluntary organizations must acknowledge these aspects and evolve, their agenda further. This block 4, which particularly is voluntary organization, role and experiences in rural development. The unit first takes care of state-sponsored voluntary organization and rural development. Now you will come to know that there is a large, section of voluntary sector or large number of voluntary organizations and NGOs which are funded by the state. State is supporting, encouraging, providing, various kind of facilities to various state institutions to promote this sector. So these voluntary organizations have a particular specific character. That's why we have called them state-sponsored voluntary organizations. Such voluntary organizations which Indian state is promoting, they have a typical particular character, because mostly majority of them are basically turn out to be implementing agencies. The development vision and development programs, they are formulated by the state, but they turn out to be at the grassroots level implementing agencies, majority of them. So in that sense their character is different. Such voluntary organizations are not innovating, they are not bringing out new experiment. They mostly are busy in implementing rural development programs. Let's not misunderstand and undermine their relevance, because state itself is incapable of going down deep to the grassroots level at every level. So since it has not that kind of infrastructure and manpower and experience to deal with the people at the grassroots level, so such voluntary organizations are very useful when implementing development agenda of the state. But their character remains different than the other voluntary organizations many voluntary organizations which start work on their own. They don't seek any kind of financial support from the state or business houses. They basically rely upon the local resources and people's own resources, which people pool together and they start some kind of development work, and they evolve like Anna Hazare has done. If you will, you will come to the last block where we have discussed, experiences, unique experiences in rural development of voluntary organizations like Anna Hazare, and then the Barefoot College in Rajasthan, and then we have this kind of such unique experiences where people have themselves evolve their development strategies. They are different. So the first unit takes care of state-sponsored voluntary organizations, which as I try to underline, have a separate character, and then the second unit takes up community-based voluntary organizations and rural development. Now these community-based voluntary organizations have a very different character. They emerge out of a particularly local rural community. People come together and then they join hands, make certain kind of association and organization, and they implement the programs right over there. Many in forestry, when it comes to irrigation, participatory irrigation, all these aspects of development are taken care of by community-based organizations, and even state sometimes channelizes its funding through these organizations, but broader parameters of development and their own administration is done by the community. Community owns the resources, community owns also the assets which are made through development, whether it's some kind of dam or project, whether it's kind of certain kind of other irrigation project, or let's say wells dug in rural areas. When the project completes, the community becomes the owners. They administer it, and then they take care of their sole managerial and aspects. State doesn't interfere into it. But funding may flow in. In such cases, funding may flow in, and that's not the problem. Like in much of these community-based organizations are active in irrigation and forest management in these areas. And the third unit takes care of voluntary organizations, some successful experiences. We have discussed about 5-6 very important, significant development experiences, and these are landmarks basically in when we talk of rural development, and particularly foremost among them is the Hind Swaraj Trust that's within the village of Ralegaon Sidhi. Ralegaon Sidhi, that's particularly done by the whole efforts of one person, Anna Hazare, who himself had no experience and no education in development or rural development. He was a normal person, a normal rural village person who tried to identify the problems in his village around that, and collected people together and has done an excellent work where the Indian state even is learning from those experiences. People from all over India are visiting that and consulting him. The governments are consulting Anna Hazare now how to develop the rural areas. It's such a successful experience. If you will read it, this part, his charismatic leadership has galvanized the community, and he never asked any extra funds from the state. Whatsoever normal developmental projects or development in within 5-year plans, Indian government was funding the development projects. Similar funds he received, no extra funds he received, no business houses he went to seek money. He collected the people only with the local resources. He developed excellent watershed development programs, and he even then at the social level campaign against social evils. And in fact, the area, it's one of the most excellent and very important experiment in rural development which has come from within society, and local people have made it successful. While the Indian mighty state with colossal funds is failing repeatedly in many 5-year plans, a large number of development programs are failing. On the other hand, a person like Anna Hazare in Ralegaon Sidhi have demonstrated that local people, when they are determined, when they come together, and then they can develop, they can do wonders. Not only developing the economic aspect of it, but also social development aspects of it. Any kind of the caste discrimination between scheduled castes or lower castes, or social evils whatsoever were existing over there, all in that area. Anna Hazare has taken care of with the persuasion of the people, with a persuasive attitude, and setting himself the moral examples in front of people, and people are very much what you can call well-to-do now, flourishing, and they have all the means, good houses, good means, good economy, and their earnings are excellent, and that's it's a very most developed, you can say, area. So this example, even all people visiting from all over India. The other is an experiment which we have discussed is the SEWA, Self-Employed Women's Association. This was started in particularly in the Ahmedabad, where small local street women who were standing, small vegetables, other things, and all that small, they were always in poverty, and this SEWA has demonstrated. Now it's a big organization. Basically, it's under the leadership of Ela Bhatt. Started in women who started in 1972 and collected some women, and they out of their earnings they pooled small resources, little money, and collected together money, and then she started giving back them to loans which they religiously repaid back, and gradually this grew into a SEWA bank, which is a very big bank, and it has done excellent job where integrating micro credit with the women, the women who were these small entrepreneur women who were selling small items, let's say vegetables, let's say on street vendors, other things. So they if you will read this experiment, experiment we have included in the course. It's excellent example where how they gathered information related to linkages with the market, mechanism and technological inputs as they enhance productivity, adequate infrastructure and operational markets. They discovered then facilities pertaining to health, security, social security services. So all these aspects gradually evolved over a period, and then they entered into gradually into rural banking also, no doubt starting from the city to begin with. Seva Bank has grown a very vast organization now. It's again a very humble initiative by the small group of women under the charismatic leadership of Ela Bhatt. It has an innovative methodology. The third particular case we have discussed is a professional assistant for development action, Pradhan. Pradhan is an organization, its case we have discussed, where it has done a good work in producing raw silk in Bihar, production of tussar silk in Bihar, and then this mushroom production technology. Like mushroom production technology basically was not such that it could not be transmitted to the people. So this Pradhan has done certain very excellent work where technologies can be, higher technologies which are not understood by people, they can be demystified. Whatsoever, very fear about such technology and which are not able, rural people are not able to understand. So Pradhan has done an exercise to demystify and and threadbare explaining this technology and its applicability at the rural level, where it can be maintained and sustained and can be applied by the people, like in silk production and in mushroom cultivation. It has been, and the third area particularly we have discussed is hide and skin flares, whereby the very lower caste or the people who are engaged in taking out the skins of the animal and how to prepare and process these skins that their value increases. Otherwise they used to take out the skins. These skins used to be raw leather, which was not of much value and which could not be sold in the market. But Pradhan, through various technological demystification of technology and transmitting this technology to the people, demonstrated that these very advanced technologies can be used by them and can be managed by people, and this made possible to add value and to prepare very superior leather of high quality leather, which they could, this is called possibly the chrome technology, and this has been a successful, a project, a rural development venture, particularly. But Pradhan is such an organization which facilitates demystification of technologies. Then another particular experience in the voluntary sector, very distinct and unique experience we have discussed is Social Work and Research Center, which is set up at in Rajasthan, and this center has done in Polonia. This center has done excellent work in the field of education, and this known by Barefoot College, where people are working to also in the development work also goes hand in hand with the education of the people in area. This was basically by Sanjit Bankar Roy. It was his effort. The person himself, devoted his life to, he and his wife, they have devoted their life to, making this, you can say, voluntary action experience in rural development a very, very successful experience. And they have over there developed a Barefoot campus, and in this area, whole this area is known for it, and then they have set an example that how people's initiative can bring a better rural development. The last example we have discussed of Tarun Bharat Sangh. Tarun Bharat Sangh basically is an experiment in watershed development at village Bikampura. It started in district Alwar in 1985, and it's leading light is Rajinder Singh. The person went from Jaipur, and he wanted to do some development work. He entered into a rural area, a village over Bikampura, in that area. But when he talked to people, people said that we need water, but Rajinder Singh had no experience how to provide water to people. He told them, I don't have any experience in this area. The elders of the people in this area, they told Rajinder Singh that for centuries together they had various ponds, pools dug up in earth, which you call jord, which is in local language is called jord. So these jords, they are rainwater we used to collect over there, and throughout the year they used to use this water. As elderly people told him that now gradually over a period these jords have been, these ponds, water ponds have been destroyed and they are not existing. So Rajinder Singh took a pledge that I will make one jord in one village to begin with, So then he joined hands with the people in the village. He walked with them, and they dug up one jord in the village where rainwater was collected, and this rainwater then was later on used for crops and drinking water. Gradually in the whole world spread in that area, in Bikampura area in Alwar district, and people various areas in various villages, they started approaching Rajinder Singh for this kind of work, and then his team will identify the spot where a jord has to be dug up, or where this pond has to be made, and how the rainwater can be collected, and when this in large number of villages this movement spread and large number of water collection emerged. Even the streams, which were dry, which were normally, they were long time back, they were flowing, water, they started flowing in again. Why? Because the watershed development, the watershed in the area had risen above. There was water collection, there was sufficient water getting seeped into the ground, and a whole area has become green, and then people are flourishing, agriculture is better, drinking problem are over. Very simple technology, very simple idea, which was neglected by people, which was historically available to them. Historically it had been available to them for years together, and then over a period it had been ignored and it had been destroyed. But Rajinder Singh made this effort, and that's why it's called Tarun Bharat Sangh. It's called Tarun Bharat Sangh. This experiment we have discussed in the course, and now the movement has grown into all over India as a Jal Bradri, and there all over India people are consulting in such a big organization. It has grown from with a very effort of a simple person, Rajinder Singh, who went to a rural area to develop. So these are initiatives from within the people, coming from within the people, which have done very, very landmark rural development work. Particularly this, these are NGOs, these are voluntary organizations which are not seeking. Now various kind of support is flowing in from Indian state, from various other organizations, development organizations, but to begin with they made their own efforts. And in the next lecture we will continue it. More about this course. This what I would like to underline is that it's very important course, and it will expose you to such area where a person, a learner who does master's program in rural development will get a large, very fruitful and important exposure to knowledge, which he can make use of in rural development. I hope we will like to stop at this point, and we will come back to in the next lecture with one more session is there, so that will be kept in continuity. And thank you very much for staying with us, and hopefully we expect some questions also, and if the learners are there listening, they may ask certain kind of question that will be encouraging for us. There's I think only a little, I think 1 minute or so is left, and we can now wind this up, but certainly we will be with you in the next lecture after maybe break of 15 minutes or so. Thank you very much to be with us. Okay.